We need to reconsider all of the fundamental assumptions underlying our Afghan policy.
Think about another way to deal with it.
Take a somewhat different course.
That requires rethinking.
Rethink this very, very carefully.
President Obama has ordered the first major military deployment of his presidency. We learned late today he's sending an additional 17,000 American troops to Afghanistan.
The rural nature of Afghanistan, 50% of Afghanistan is basically rural. The rural nature of Afghanistan is precisely why the United States cannot defeat the Taliban militarily, because the United States only has the forces to go and control certain urban areas. And when I say urban areas, I mean like 7 or 8 houses in a crossroads is considered an urban area. And they only have the ability to control these sorts of things. They don't have the troop size, nor could they conceivably ever have the troop size to actually control the countryside. It would require hundreds of thousands of troops in every village, which is not a tenable situation whatsoever.
If we look at Afghanistan, what we can see is, I think, the application of a faulty lesson. What I think the Obama administration is doing is believing that, well, if 20,000 extra troops suppress violence in Iraq, maybe 30,000 extra troops will suppress violence in Afghanistan. And I think that they're likely to be disappointed.
Given the size of the population, given the lack of development, lack of infrastructure, the number of troops that the administration is talking about really hardly amounts to more than a drop in the bucket.
You need a ratio of something like 1 combat force soldier for every 40 people in the country. And what that equates to in Afghanistan is well over 250,000 Western combat forces.
You see, you need to learn from history that there were 500,000 Soviet troops in Afghanistan, and they could not contain the Afghan resistance.
A military solution is not going to bring resolution here. If it would have, then the Russians had over 500,000 soldiers engaged here. The British were actually, they had the territory all around here, and they had the largest concentration of British troops during those times, and they chose to let it govern itself. So, I mean, it's important to look at some of those, lessons from history and see why was that done, and how will it be different today.
The Afghans are probably the world champions in resisting foreign domination and infiltration into their country. They showed this to the Russians in the 20th century. They showed it to the British in the 19th century.
But to try and change a society which has never, ever been able to, by force, be changed. It's been known as a graveyard of many great armies. And it is not a place where you can bring about change by force.
Я тогда начал понимать, что что-то неправильно делаем. Потому что если мы делали правильно, народ против нас и пошел. И вот с этого дня я начал замечать, что люди против нас. Уже взгляды были другие, действия были другие. И с каждым днем росло сопротивление населения. Они начали организовывать отряды, формирование, пошла помощь. И вот с этого, с января, с февраля 80-го года до самого вывода до февраля 89-го года негатив к нам шел по нарастающей.
ABC News has taken a poll in Afghanistan. It shows that after 7 years there, less than half of Afghans view the U.S. favorably.
30,000, 100,000, as many as they come, they will increase the casualties. They will destroy our country, and there will be casualties to their forces also.
We don't want the Americans to build us roads or bridges. We just want them to leave.
The Pashtuns who live in the rural areas, often outside of state control, have both a code of honor and a code of conduct called the Pashtunwali. And it stresses personal autonomy. It stresses having solutions take place outside of the state.
But there's another aspect to this. I will be your friend as long as you don't do the one thing that is most vile in Pashtun tradition. And that tradition says this: do not invade my woman's dressing room, do not invade my house, do not invade my complex, do not invade my village, do not invade my country. We have done all of those things.
So when the international community, and especially American, arrived in Afghanistan, the Afghan people said, very well, we would like to have a normal life. We would like to have electricity, to have a road, to have a car, to have a job. Unfortunately, after 7 years, now the Afghan people didn't believe in your message.
So, you know, for local people, they say, okay, on one side you're talking about peace, on the other side you're bringing more troops. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So I think it doesn't help in terms of what the perception is in the mind of the local people. If you're talking about not engaging militarily and looking towards development and diplomacy, then why have more of a surge of troops?
I'm really surprised when people saying that, okay, these troops are coming just to make a security, and this secure environment will give more chance for more investment and development. If you comparing today troops in Afghanistan 2009 till 2002, I believe the number of troops in 2002 was very less, but the development project was very successful at that time. Security was much, much, much better than today. And at that time, people was having and carrying hope for the better future.
This is not some faraway place for someone like me. I mean, this is my home. If I'm living there and a bomb was to fall and you see your daughter's leg flying in the air or your wife is hurt, then it's very difficult for you to have a sympathetic view towards the greater cause, even if you are part of collateral damage.
The experience that we have from last 7 years, more troops will cause more casualties of civilians, and more casualties of civilians will bring more people to join insurgency in Taliban. In this case, sending more troops are a wrong diagnosis coming with wrong prescription.
Until just over a month ago, these men were serving the Afghan government as police patrolling the border with Iran. Now they answer to the Taliban. Their goal is to drive all foreign troops out of Afghanistan.
Our soil is occupied by Americans, and I want them to leave this country. That's my only goal.
Those additional forces are plenty of additional forces, plenty enough to continue to fuel suicide and other forms of terrorism that is anti-American inspired terrorism, which is just simply not a good thing. Before our invasion in the fall of 2001, Afghanistan never experienced a suicide attack in its history.
I've met a lot of Taliban members who say that they've joined the insurgency because they've seen their house bombed, or they've seen their relatives' house bombed.
But I'm sure that it would be the same here in the United States. If you were to have a central force, even be it a US Army, go into Michigan even, or any particular state in America, and you were to see the big Humvees outside and they were to stop people and check them and ask them questions and go into their homes and hold a gun on their daughters' heads, I'm sure that even people here in the United States will react in a similar way that people in this area react to such a thing.
I think, Madam Secretary-Designate, we're on the wrong track. And I think unless we rethink this very, very carefully, we could raise the stakes, invest America's reputation in a greater way, as well as our treasure, and wind up pursuing a policy that is frankly unpursuable, unachievable.
The idea of sending more troops to Afghanistan troubles me for several reasons. First of all, I think it sends a signal that we consider this to be a military problem. When you have a military problem that can't be controlled with the resources you're sending, you send more troops. But that only works if it's a military problem. And what we're facing in Afghanistan is not a military problem.
You know, we need to remind ourselves, we are not Afghani. We are not Iraqi. We need to remind ourselves that we are sending hundreds of thousands of people into these countries who who do not share the religion, who do not understand the culture, who do not have kinship relations with local people, and who do not even speak the language.
There is a need for U.S. to think about another way to deal with this, not in the fighting way.
Вот они уже сколько, с 2001 года, вот уже 8 лет, ни туда, ни сюда. Поэтому я уверен, что будут приниматься какие-то другие решения. Уже понятно, что военного решения там нет.
The issue in Afghanistan, an issue of a government that lacks legitimacy and a country that faces severe unrest and stability, there is no way that simply sending any number of U.S. troops is actually going to provide an antidote to the basic problem.
If there were simple solutions, one hopes we would have already imposed them, and we wouldn't be talking about this. But it requires a lot, and it requires rethinking what is actually necessary in Afghanistan. What can we do? What can we not do? And what's the best way to carry it out?
Afghanistan is a country that poses some dangers to us, but nothing like the dangers that Pakistan poses. Right now, Pakistan is the most dangerous country in the world.